Are you someone who is warm, sensitive, and creative? Do you think that those qualities would make you a good knight? Stay tuned and learn how to read this contradictory card when it shows up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we are learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's card is the Knight of Cups. Most people find the court cards to be the most challenging part of the tarot deck, and I will do my best to demystify it here. I will be using the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. You'll find a link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I used for my research. So let's get started. If you consider the knight to be a part of the royal court, he is likely the teenager who is ready to go to college. He fits in between the impulsive pages and the mature, stable king and queen. Before we talk about this knight specifically, I want to discuss knights in general. This information is from worldhistory.org, and I have linked to it below. The knight's purpose was to win victory on a battlefield. Basically, they were the frontline army and rode in close formation. If their lance was broken, they would wield their swords and dismount if their horse was injured. The process of becoming a knight began with being a page, who were the youngest members of the royal court. Pages started training around the age of 7 by serving a local knight or members of the royal family. Their jobs included running messages, serving, cleaning clothing and weapons, and learning the basics of combat. The next step was to become a squire, which is a knight in training, and this started about the age of 14. Their jobs included learning weaponry and horsemanship, as well as taking care of a full knight. Squires would clean a knight's weapon, polish his armor, look after his horses, and help him dress for battle. They also learned skills such as hunting and falconry, and they learned about music, dance, how to speak in Latin and French, and how to have good manners. Another job of the squire was to look after the pages. As the squire got older, he learned about combat and would undergo extensive training to increase their strength and skills. Knighthood generally occurred between the ages of 18 and 21 in an elaborate ceremony. I'm not sure if this is a good comparison, but I think of the knights as being the fraternity brothers of the court. They were well educated and well off, but their testosterone levels would overpower their brains sometimes. My son was in a fraternity when he was in college, and I don't think I slept well for those entire 4 years. As you can see on the screen, knights are all on horseback. They have lots of energy and are always going places, generally considered to be a quest. They are strong, smart, and often a bit reckless. They are more mature than pages, but still have a lot of growing up to do, so they are finding their way in the world. Like teenagers, their moods can change rapidly, but they continue to move forward. One of the reasons that court cards are challenging is that they can represent 3 things. The first is a person. As I mentioned, a knight is traditionally considered to be a male in his late teens through 20s. Depending on your age, a knight could represent a romantic partner, your child or sibling, a neighbor, or someone you work with. The second thing a knight can represent is a part of yourself that is adventurous and maybe not completely in control of your emotions. And the third and final thing a court card can represent is a situation where you are moving forward in your life or you need to move forward. So a knight might be a kick in the pants that it's time to stop thinking about going back to school and actually do it. So how do you know whether this knight represents a real person, a part of yourself, or a new approach to life? First of all, go by the question. If it isn't clear, look at the surrounding cards and its position in a spread. Here's 2 other things to keep in mind when we discuss the court cards. First of all, don't give much credence to the ages, gender, or physical characteristics. For instance, a knight is traditionally considered to be a male in his late teens or 20s. Does that mean it doesn't represent your lover who is 35 years old and female? Or your adventurous grandparent who went skydiving for their 75th birthday? No, it does not. Secondly, and more important, look at the energy from this card. Your level of maturity is not based on your age, and it can vary in different areas of your life. We all know super mature people in their teens and very immature people in their 80s. You can also be mature in one area of your life, say your finances, and totally reckless in another area like your health. One of the easiest ways to understand the personality of the court cards is to understand the chart on the screen. Each member of the court card's personality is related to 2 elements. Here's a quick reminder of what each element means. Pentacles are connected to the element of earth. It's all about things in the material world, such as our bodies, homes, nature, or how we earn our living. These people are very stable. They work hard and enjoy traditions. Wands is connected to the element of fire. These people tend to be feisty, confident, enthusiastic, adventurous, extroverted, passionate, flashy, and high energy. These people make good athletes and good salespeople. Cups are connected to the element of water. This card is all about emotions. Cups people are gentle, loving, sensitive, nurturing, and feel things deeply. These people make good healers and social workers. Swords is connected to the element of air. Swords is all about communicating and expressing ourselves. This includes our thoughts about ourselves as well as our thoughts about the world around us. This encompasses intelligence, knowledge, truth, mental clarity, and our sense of right and wrong. These people make good lawyers and writers. Each of the court cards is made up of 2 elements. The first element is related to their rank. On the column down the left, you can see that all pages are related to earth. All knights are related to fire, all queens are related to water, and all kings are related to air. Each member of the court card also has a suit, and along the top of the chart you can see the 4 suits. Pentacles are related to earth, wands are related to fire, cups are related to water, and swords are related to air. As you can see on the chart, the Knight of Cups is a combination of the element of fire and the element of water. The rank of all the knights connects to fire, which makes sense because they are the most active of the court cards. He is also connected to the suit of cups, which is the element of water. So this is a very interesting combination. What happens to fire when it meets water? It goes out. So here we have this fraternity brother, high energy kind of guy who is highly trained to do everything possible to win a victory on the battlefield. And that is combined with the water element, which is about being emotional and sensitive. It sounds like a huge contradiction, and I don't think that this guy would make a very effective knight. As I've mentioned in several videos, I am a cups person and super sensitive. I can't even watch movies where there is any kind of blood or violence. I would make a horrible knight, and I expect that this guy would too. In the Knight of Cups, we see a young man sitting on a horse. He's wearing a winged helmet and winged shoes. He's wearing a tunic over his blue and white armor. The tunic has a pattern that shows red fish and blue waves. He is holding a gold cup in his right hand. He's riding on a gray horse with his right front leg bent at the knee. Along the bottom of the card, we see a landscape area with hills, trees, and a river running through it. When the Knight of Cups appears in a reading, it can represent a person or a part of yourself who is warm, sensitive, and creative. It can represent a person or part of yourself that is idealistic, romantic, and motivated by emotion. It can symbolize that it's time for you to use your creativity and make decisions based on your heart. It can also remind you not to forget about self-love. Finally, it can also mean that you will receive happy news. Let's talk about the symbolism of the Knight of Cups. He is wearing a winged helmet and winged shoes. These are the wings of Hermes, the Greek god of communication. According to Pam Richards in her book Understanding Tarot, his winged helmet symbolizes the rush at which his emotional thoughts can travel and change direction with his emotions in flight. There is a red ring at the base of the wings that shows them stemming from a passionate mind. It is born out of a heartfelt, intense search for a place to show his true self in the outside world." Unquote. He is wearing a tunic with red fish and blue waves on it. Red represents passion, action, and love. Fish live in the water, so it makes a lot of sense to see them on his tunic. Fish generally represent the psyche, emotions, and the unconscious. These attributes are all associated with cups and the element of water. Under his tunic, we see blue and white armor. These are the same colors we see in the dress of the high priestess, which is major arcana number 2. Just as in the high priestess, the white is about purity and the blue represents intuition. His white belt also signifies purity. He is holding a gold cup in his right hand. His buddy, the fish, that we saw in the Page of Cups, is no longer with him, so he doesn't have anyone to talk to. The empty cup means that he is yearning for something, presumably love. It is being held in his right hand, which is the hand of giving, so I assume that he is looking for someone to share his love with. He's riding on a gray horse. Gray is the color of stability. The horse has a blue bridle, which can represent imagination, sensitivity, and spirituality. The horse's right foot is bent at the knee. We can see that it is moving in a forward direction, although not very quickly. Along the bottom of the card, we see a landscape area with a river running through it. The river represents the knight's emotions. The hilly area can represent obstacles, and the trees can symbolize protection. When the Knight of Cups appears in an upright position, it can represent somebody you know or a part of yourself that is warm, sensitive, and charming. It can represent a person who is idealistic, romantic, or motivated by emotion. It is the kind of person who wants to be in love and goes to any length to express their feelings. Unfortunately, their idealistic nature may mean that they have very high expectations that can be impossible for mere humans to meet. It can represent a person who takes things very personally, often about things that most people wouldn't even notice. For this reason, others can be confused about why the relationship has suddenly turned cold. It can also take these sensitive cups people longer than most to recover from a setback. It can represent a person who is also very tuned into other people and how they are feeling. It can represent someone who is a true romantic. It can be the kind of person who spends hours writing their boyfriend a love poem for his birthday and then arrives late for his party because they were daydreaming about whether or not he would propose. It can represent someone who is extremely charming and seductive to the point they'd be called a knight in shining armor or a ladies' man. Let's just say their goal isn't to start a long-term relationship. It can represent someone who has a great imagination, loves creating, and can spend a lot of time daydreaming. The Knight of Cups can represent a person who is very nurturing. They also like to rescue people, whether or not they need to be rescued. It can represent someone who spends a lot of time looking inward. Their goal is to be calm and happy. They buy self-improvement books and are constantly striving to be better people. They are in touch with their spirituality and dislike conflict. It can represent someone who makes decisions based on their heart, intuition, and gut feelings. These people are often psychic. The Knight of Cups can be a reminder that it's time for you to use your creativity and make decisions based on your heart. Finally, it can represent new opportunities and maybe even a proposal. Here's an example from my life about the upright Knight of Wands, and it's about making decisions intuitively. If you are familiar with my videos, you know that I am a cups person and am very comfortable making decisions intuitively. Over the last 40 years, my husband and I have bought 3 houses. All 3 were purchased quickly and intuitively. The first house was in Toronto, Canada. We were living in an apartment, went to an open house, liked the house, and decided that we wanted it. It was the first house that we looked at, and I knew it was the one. We put in an offer, had it accepted, and were very happy there until my husband got transferred to Phoenix, Arizona a few years later. The second house was in Phoenix, Arizona. If you've never done a corporate move, here's what happens. Usually the company pays for a trip to the new location that is 5 or 6 days long. You get 2 or 3 days to choose a house and a couple more days to put in an offer and handle the counteroffers. It is incredibly stressful. At the time we moved, I'd only been to the United States twice, once to Niagara Falls, New York, and the other time to Walt Disney World in Florida. Nevertheless, we found a house the second day that I liked, and we decided to go for it. Our offer was eventually accepted, and we were happy there for 17 years. The next move was another transfer, this time to Long Island, New York. We had to look at a map to figure out where Long Island was. Once again, we had 2 days to find a house, only this time it was more difficult because we had kids. While my husband was at the office, my children and I toured homes and found one we liked. On the third day, we put in an offer, and we have lived here for 17 years. Whenever we tell people this, they are amazed that we could have chosen homes in a couple of days in places that we had never even been to. Basically, it was a Knight of Cups approach. We had to make a quick decision, which is the fire element, and chose based on my intuition, which was the water element. When the Knight of Cups appears in a reverse position, it can signify a person who is extremely passionate to the point they have become angry, jealous, or unpredictable. It can represent a person who seduces people by using manipulative or deceitful tactics, or their moods are unpredictable or melodramatic, possibly made worse by alcohol or drug abuse. It can represent an unhappy relationship because one of the partners is too jealous, needy, or insecure, or they have unrealistic, perfectionistic standards. It could mean that the relationship is moving too quickly and you need to slow down. It could be someone who is too sensitive. They are unable to forgive even minor misunderstandings and withdraw from the relationship. Finally, the Knight of Wands can represent a message that never arrives. Here's an example about the reversed Knight of Cups, and it is about someone who is impetuous and too sensitive, and it relates to Will Smith and the 2022 Oscars. This made major news at the 2022 Oscars, which was hosted by comedian Chris Rock. Chris Rock was presenting the Best Documentary Feature and made a comment about Will Smith's wife, whose name is Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head. He compared her to Demi Moore's shaved head in the 1997 movie G.I. Jane. At that point, Will Smith emerged from the audience, walked across the stage, slapped Chris Rock on his left cheek, and returned to his seat. The audience actually thought it was a comedy bit. Rock commented, and I'm going to paraphrase the profanity, that, quote, Will Smith just smacked the crap out of me. To which Smith shouted, "Keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth." I think this is a great example of the reverse Knight of Cups, because Will Smith overreacted to something, which is the fire element, in an inappropriate way about his wife, which is the emotional water energy. Whatever caused the outburst, he was not somebody who was in control of his emotions, and he acted rashly. I've included a link to a Wikipedia article if you want to learn more about this incident. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Knight of Cups. Number 1, do you spend enough time nourishing your creative, intuitive, and spiritual side? Number 2, do you generally make decisions based on your head or your heart? Number 3, have you ever been manipulated by someone who is too romantic? Number 4, do you have feelings that you should be expressing? What is causing you to hold back? And finally, number 5, is your emotional side something that helps or harms you? Is it something that you need to develop or could manage better? So I hope this video has helped you understand the Knight of Cups, and please join me for the next video, which is the Queen of Cups.